Today I would primarily like to address the developments at the Highest Arts and Post, the HAP. As Minister of VSR, I would like to let you know that I firmly believe that the HAP and its intended purpose are crucial to our healthcare system. It should have served to alleviate overcrowded emergency rooms and reduce service delays, which are important for the well-being of our citizens. However, we cannot ignore the facts. The HAP was launched as a pilot project in June 2023 as a 6-month project, followed by an evaluation of the project to determine how to proceed. The contract was extended by another 6 months by SZV right before the election in December 2023. When I assumed office in May, SZV was already preparing to terminate the services because of irregularities discovered in the billing of the HAP. SZV informed the HAP 1 week before the end of the second contract that they would discontinue the contract because the financing of the project was not sustainable. However, knowing how important the community deems the HAP, I asked SZV to give the HAP a chance to address the serious allegations and operational irregularities they were facing with an extension of 3 months so that the SZV audit could be finalized and a thorough evaluation could be done so that we could see how to proceed in the best way for everyone. A meeting was held with Dr. Denouy, SZV, and myself on June 18, 2024 to discuss the points of improvement and the way forward. To ensure a fair evaluation, I commissioned a special evaluation committee composed of individuals with diverse expertise from within the ministry and relevant stakeholders. After receiving the report from this evaluation committee, SZV proceeded to issue the notice of termination of the HAP. After the notice was sent, I was informed of the letter that was sent. In good faith, I extended the HAP's contract by 3 months back in June, hoping they would rectify the issues. Furthermore, I initiated the evaluation committee and received the recommendations on September 3rd. The evaluation revealed serious concerns, some of which I can mention. There was no clear distinction between after-hours GP services, so the HAP, and regular St. Martin Diagnostic Center services. There were reportedly no significant decreases observed in emergency numbers at St. Martin Medical Center. There was no liability insurance at St. Martin Diagnostic Center, which presents a significant risk, not only for our community, but especially for our fragile tourism industry with tourists frequenting the establishment. There were no internal protocols for triage, so for determining the urgency of medical cases. The inconsistency of prescriptions and billings from St. Martin Diagnostic Center and the HAP raised further red flags. It could not be determined through which company SZV was being billed. There are many other critical issues that could have been addressed by the HAP, the operators of the HAP, in between June and now. But I must say that despite St. Martin Diagnostic Centers and the MP's claims, the data received by the committee do not support that a HAP has significantly reduced the burden on the emergency room. Even with 7,000 persons using the services, 83% of whom were covered under SZV, the number still did not show a substantial impact on emergencies, which shows that the evaluation points more in the direction of us perhaps having to explore options to extend regular GP hours. It is again unfortunate that politics seems to be played with an issue as sensitive as this. In his statement, the former minister suggests that the closure of the HAP could lead to a public health crisis. Let me be clear. Allowing the HAP to continue operating in the manner it would continue to cut deeply into our healthcare budget and ultimately undermine the quality of care that our citizens deserve. Irresponsible management of public health funds is more likely to lead to a public health crisis than closing an operation that fails to meet critical standards. I can stand here today and politicize as well. I can show you emails that were sent to me by the doctor following our June 18th meeting, threatening to go to the media if I decide to close the HAP, followed by an apology. The doctor and the former Minister of Health, the current MP, also hosted a radio program together 3 days before elections, in which they indicated that I was closing the HAP and a vote for me would be a vote for the closure of the HAP. This radio appearance was also followed by another apology from the doctor. I will reiterate that the contract is between SZV and the HAP. At no time did I close the HAP. We believe in the value of a well-functioning HAP, and we know it is needed in St. Martin, but it must meet its obligations and operate within the agreed-upon standards. We cannot tolerate mismanagement at the expense of public health.
Asked about the situation with textbooks at public schools. Many of them had not yet received their textbooks, and you indicated that you had a meeting that same day with the education department, and you would have asked about that. They still don't have the books. What is the situation, and why is it that public schools every year have to go through the same thing, where they don't get the materials to work with? So when would this be resolved?
Regarding to textbooks, however, I think it was last week. I approached some of my colleagues. I saw them busy with a set of boxes and assorting books. So hopefully everything will be resolved in short. We always have a capacity of, the lack of capacity of, of personnel. So I saw only 3 ladies there doing it. We don't have no men. And I see books from the bottom of the floor until nearly the roof right in this building. So once they're finished, I think they will do the necessary, and the books will be disbursed to whom supposed to get those books.
Yeah. I just wanted to get an idea, because we all know that school starts in August.
Yes.
So why do we always have to go through this with public schools?
However, I'm just the minister for 4 months, so I do understand your question also as an individual that have children as well. And it is a question that I have to bring to the Department of Public Education as to why. We are also having discussions where I did mention we have the public school education and we have Catholic schools, etc. But I would like every one of us to be on the same level, also with the way that we act, and also the type of quality education that the other schools give, that we also give that.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Here are a few tips to remember to help keep you and your family safe. If you're not in an area that is advised to evacuate and you decide to stay in your home, plan for adequate supplies in case you lose power and water for several days and you're not able to leave due to flooding or blocked roads. This hurricane season, make a family emergency communication plan. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
Colleagues of the Council of Ministers, to the media present, and to the people of St. Martin, a pleasant good morning to one and all. I'd like to start off today by announcing that this morning flight operations was disrupted due to a generator failure at the airport during the GEBE power outage. I have been informed that the generator was down for approximately an hour and a half, and but is fully operational again since 7 a.m. this morning. I'd like the community to know that I'm monitoring the situation closely and have requested a thorough investigation to determine the cause of the failure. Seemingly, it's one of the new generators. And our goal is to find out what the permanent solution is, as we simply cannot afford to have this happen again. With regards to Win Air and Z Air flight operations, recently many have asked, why is Z Air not flying to St. Martin? To be clear, Z Air has been granted approval to operate flights to St. Martin by my person, pending an update from the FAA regarding their oversight agreement up until April 2025. However, the reason for the delay in their operation is something only the airline can clarify. From our end, all necessary permissions has been granted, and similarly, when Nair has requested and received permission from Curaçao to operate 10 flights daily. So, however, to date, we have not heard any update from the Z Air regarding their plans for flights between Curaçao and St. Martin, but we hope to receive more information soon and to provide clarity as to why they're not operating as yet. But just so that the public knows that it is on our end, they're free to fly until we receive an update from the FAA regarding their oversight agreement. As you are aware, next week, Friday, September 27th, we will be celebrating World Tourism Day. This year's theme is Tourism and Peace. Tourism remains one of the largest industries in the world, with the World Travel and Tourism Council, the WTTC, reporting that travel and tourism contributes to 10.1% of the global GDP since in 2017. Additionally, 20% of jobs created from 2008 to 2017 were directly linked to the tourism industry. In St. Martin, I believe there's a need to bridge the gap between our tourism industry and the education system. If we do not reach our youth, if we do not teach our youth the significance of tourism, they will lack the motivation to protect this vital sector. I believe the future of tourism lies in the hands of our youths, which is why we're focusing this year's World Tourism Celebration on engaging them. With this in mind, we decided to focus our efforts into a key focused activity for World Tourism Days for the youths next week. So we have about 52 students next week and 5 teaching staff accompanied by 3 officials from St. Martin Tourist Bureau. They will be touring one of the Royal Caribbean cruise ships. We also have 2 groups of 15 students accompanied by 3 adults who will experience an aerial tour of the island aboard the Win Air, our national carrier. In addition, we have additional groups of students that will visit key tourism sites, including the Sonesta Maho, as well as the airport and harbor, to gain a first-hand experience of what tourism means for our island. The goal is to make tourism studies an integral part of the school curriculum in collaboration with the Minister of Education, ensuring that the crucial industry remains sustainable through the innovation and creativity and entrepreneurial spirit of the youth. In addition, we have other activities next week, slated for next week. So on September 27, next week, Friday, we have tourism-related quizzes that will be held throughout various radio stations such as My 88, Laser 101, and the Voice of St. Martin 102.7 FM. We're going to be giving out great prizes such as tours, hotel stays, Win Air flights as well, and all of these will be awarded, and in some restaurants as well, as restaurant dinners or lunches. Then we will have, followed by an award ceremony, we will recognize and honor 8 individuals who have made significant contributions to our tourism sector. I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the harbor, the airport, Win Air, Sonesta Maho, and all tourism-related stakeholders, such as the restaurants and tour operators, and for their support in celebrating World Tourism Day next week. And your efforts have helped make tourism engaging and impactful for our community. I encourage the public to participate in this year's celebration. As we always say, tourism is everybody's business, and it is important that we all play a part in the continued success.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurances.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
One of them that I want to start off with for me, which is the most important, is the fact that in the conversation or in the presentation that we're getting, I am constantly hearing that GB has financial constraints and that I'm also hearing that GB is absorbing costs. Normally, in a well-operating, a properly functional company, you usually don't have those two things together. You do not say the company is suffering from financial constraints, and then also saying that we're going to absorb costs. Because the one thing that you have to do is when you have financial constraints, the one thing that you do is you start cutting costs. You don't absorb costs. So I really need to emphasize this point, because this is the part that it's okay to come here and give an answer that will appease the public, but you also have to be realistic in it. Because at the same time that I'm concerned about that statement being made, I also refer to the Herald from yesterday, which is talking about Telem Group focuses on financial recovery and growth to restore trust. GB has not yet been able to restore trust. This is not about the Prime Minister, Madam Chair Lady. This is about GB restoring trust with the public, which is why it is having financial constraints. Because persons are not paying, not only because they can't afford to pay, and they have let the time go over more than 1 month that they're actually not paying. The longer you take to pay a bill, the likelihood of you being able to pay that bill is very slim, because it becomes too big for you to manage that bill. It is the law of life when it comes to finances, and this is the reality that we have to deal with. One thing that GB has always had to deal with is the fact that when you have, after a hurricane, the same thing happens. The clients don't pay GB because everybody is trying to repair and clean up after a hurricane, but that is usually for a period of three months or so. And then after, they come back on board because GB starts to cut. What GB has been doing is starting to cut, but they're at a financial constraint. So my concern is, how long is that sustainable for? Because it is not sustainable. And I refer to the Telem article in the paper because what happened here is that when we didn't catch the problems of the financial constraints early, you had over 80 persons that went home from Telem. And my concern will go back again to the employees of GB, because not only are they overworked, but they're overworked. I don't know if they're going to be underpaid because we have financial constraints. So you cannot have a contradiction, ma'am. You cannot have a contradiction in a statement coming out here, because beyond that, beyond that statement, we have to deal with the reality of how sustainable is it then to keep on our staff at the same time. That is all I want to answer on, because I just need the truth coming in here to us today to know that we don't have to then provide for those employees that will be laid off the same way how it happened with Telem. And when Telem is talking about the fact that people are giving off false stories, the true story is Telem found itself in a kerfuffle because of bad management decisions. And I am warning once again, like I did over 2 years ago, about the national security crisis we are in. Because what was not nice this week is when I had to go in for an interview, I was reminded of a small hotel in town that every time their customers are coming in, they're turning away every time they see that the power is off, because this small guest house doesn't have a generator. So you're putting a constraint on the business owners to be able to stay open when they're losing business because they have no power. I just want a straight answer on this. This is all I'm looking for, because last time I was hopeful when we also found out the same day that the generators were released or shipped that day that we were in here when we started this meeting. So now I don't know if I missed it, and I apologize, Mr. Prime Minister. I really want to know if those generators are near to be arriving to the island, because I have to say, I'm now very concerned because we found ourselves this morning again with I believe it was an island-wide power outage. You know, I'm expecting that management is going to be hired after the recruitment process. There's a lot of things that are compounding on top of this, and I just need some assurance to give to the public that the Prime Minister is also trying to do, but we have to be realistic. And saying that you're going to absorb the cost, I don't know how that's going to happen when this is how it happens. Sol sends in, I believe it's daily, they send in their prices. It's updated in the system via the invoice that comes in, goes on to a different department to make sure that it's passed through the invoices. So then that means that we're going to have to pull out, physically, manually pull out the invoices that come to the finance manager of GB and make sure that the new bills aren't going to be incorporated in the price buildup of how they normally work at GB. I mean, I can spend one day and go through the detailed process of it, but I don't understand how we are going to be absorbing costs when the process of the bills coming into the finance manager and then going on to the requisite, the proper department. There's a process there. So when we disrupt that process of taking out diesel prices, it doesn't seem workable to me in my math brain. So I really would like to understand how that is going to function. We can do it off books, because I know the details of GB in and out because of being a former employee of GB. And maybe for public consumption, it might be so complicated, just like the formula. But I really would like to get an understanding of how that is going to physically be done to absorb the cost within the way that the system is working. And then, just as a recommendation, while Telem is busy after laying off a bunch of staff, trying to rebuild trust after making a bunch of employees redundant, I need to understand and make sure that all of us, because we're all clients of GB, that we get comfort from GB that their billing system is accurate. It needs to be accurate. And if it's not accurate, trust me, what happens and what works very well is when you use estimates for bills, especially when the estimate is based on actual consumption of employees. Because until you fix that first problem that we had in GB, which was mistrust in the system of billing because of a cyber attack, we will continue to have financial, quote unquote, constraints. So on top of that, I also wanted to confirm what the Prime Minister said is correct. There is no contract with Sol, but I don't think it's normal either that we go on not having a contract with our sole supplier. And I will go back in, and I appreciate, Mr. Prime Minister, I do appreciate the fact that you provided the components breakdown of how Sol charges GB. But what I would like to recommend to everyone is bring Sol in the room, bring 7 Seas in the room, bring the Minister of VSI in the room, and then have the Prime Minister there as well, so that everyone can discuss how to move our country forward in a collective effort. Because we're all in this now together, because we're all suffering, because not even the airport, that flight coming in from Santo Domingo today, couldn't land. It couldn't land because the airport wasn't working. So does everyone realize the national crisis that we're having now? Because we need people to come in. We're stating the obvious. This is all of us now has to handle this problem. Every single one of us need to have all hands on deck to manage this problem. So the information, the components that we have, I want to reiterate again. I appreciate the clarification for us as well as the public. The components that the Prime Minister mentioned are built into the price that Sol charges us, is including the throughput fee. And yes, indeed, it is about $5 to $6 million that Sol has to pay to the harbor. But I want to reiterate and clarify this. The barge with the fuel doesn't come to the harbor. It comes straight into Kebe through their pipeline going into GB. So until someone can explain to me how the harbor is receiving $5 to $6 million a month for money, for fuel being delivered directly to the port, to the Kebe plant, I want to understand that, because that is where you need to go to get relief. And if you can't get relief from that, bring in harbor in that conversation that I said that has to be had with the Minister of VSA, with the Prime Minister, with 7 Seas, with GB, and with Sol. All hands are on deck. So the harbor also has to be very, very, very clear and very forthcoming with the information of whether or not they can handle what we need to have happen in our country right now to save us. Lastly, let me see. I think I've covered most of it, because I apologize if the Prime Minister mentioned the delivery of the day that we had this meeting, when we started this meeting. Again, I just want to emphasize, if that wasn't clear, I would like to know whether or not that shipment that went out the first day that we started talking about this, that we had our first meeting, whether that shipment, where in the world is that shipment now? Because then at least we know that it's coming to the island. Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady.